Tonight was supposed to be a rare evening of leisure, a chance to unwind and immerse myself in the world of theater. I had carefully planned for this, looking forward to the reprieve from the constant pressures of daily life. However, fate, or rather, my mother-in-law, had entirely different plans in store for me. She arrived at my doorstep unannounced, a triumphant expression on her face, as if she were bringing great news, but what followed left me utterly dumbfounded. Behind her stood 9 of her friends, all of them beaming as though they had just been invited to a grand holiday retreat. "Julie, darling, we're all staying here tonight," my mother-in-law declared, as if this were a prearranged agreement rather than an abrupt imposition. I blinked, trying to process the absurdity of the situation. I had made no such invitation, and yet here she was, confidently expecting me to host an entire group of guests without so much as a courtesy call in advance. As if that weren't enough, she expected me to prepare dinner for them and arrange their sleeping accommodations, without the slightest regard for the plans I had made for myself. I opened my mouth, prepared to protest, but my words caught in my throat when I noticed something around her neck. It was a necklace, my necklace, a cherished keepsake from my late mother, one I had treasured for years, and yet, there it was, displayed so brazenly as though it had always belonged to her. Something inside me snapped. "Actually," I said, forcing my voice to remain steady, "I'm about to leave for a trip." Her eyes widened in surprise, clearly not expecting me to refuse her. It was the final straw, the culmination of years of her endless demands and relentless disregard for my autonomy. I drew in a breath and, with all the firmness I could muster, added, "And I'd like you to return that necklace. It belongs to me. My name is Julie, I am 32 years old and, up until a few years ago, I worked in administration before transitioning to teaching computer classes after my marriage. My husband, Eric, runs his family's business, a role that often leaves him preoccupied with its many challenges. Despite his busy schedule, we've always found solace in small, meaningful moments together. Our movie nights, in particular, are a source of comfort for him, allowing him to escape the weight of his responsibilities, even if just for a few hours. For most of my life, I have been more of a listener than a speaker, someone who preferred to quietly observe rather than assert herself, but with Eric's encouragement, I have been learning to find my voice, to stand up for myself in ways I never had before. My older brother, ever the protective figure, often felt overbearing in my younger years, yet, as time passed, I came to appreciate his concern, much in the same way I valued Eric's unwavering support. Eric's family is complex, to say the least. His brother, now the president of their late father's company, is married to Catherine, a woman I deeply admire. She is ambitious, dependable, and unfailingly kind, but what I admire most about her is her assertiveness, her ability to speak her mind with confidence and grace. She has a remarkable knack for handling our mother-in-law in a way that I have always struggled to emulate. Unfortunately, Catherine and her husband live far away, and we don't see each other as often as I would like. It's something I have come to regret deeply, especially in light of my mother-in-law's increasingly overbearing presence in my life. My mother-in-law carries herself with an air of entitlement, as though she holds dominion over everything in her orbit, including me. Being the wife of the company's former president, she exudes confidence, but it often manifests as stubbornness and arrogance. Time and again, she has pressured me to abandon my job, insisting, "Julie, you're Eric's wife, the president. You should quit working and dedicate yourself fully to supporting him." While Eric has always respected my choices, her disapproval is ever present, a silent but persistent weight in the background. Thankfully, we do not live close to her, though her presence has still managed to loom large in our lives. When Eric's father passed away suddenly from a heart attack, everything changed. The loss sent shockwaves through the family, leaving Eric and his brother to shoulder the responsibility of the company. In the wake of this upheaval, Eric made the decision to relocate to Philadelphia to oversee operations at the company's main office. His brother assumed the role of president, while Eric stepped into the position of vice president. We found a house in Philadelphia, a cozy home nestled in a quiet neighborhood. It was a little far from the nearest train station, but it was peaceful, a sanctuary, or so I had hoped. With Eric buried in his work, often coming home late, I dedicated myself to making our house a warm and welcoming place for him, preparing home-cooked meals to support him through this demanding period. He appreciated my efforts more than he let on. "I'm back, I'm starving," he'd say upon returning home, exhaustion written all over his face. and I would greet him with a smile, replying, "Thanks for working so hard, I'll get dinner ready." One evening, Eric mentioned something that made me hesitate. "Hey Julie, my mom wants to visit this weekend, is that okay?" I knew she had been struggling with loneliness since my father-in-law's passing, so I agreed without protest. "Of course," I said, though I knew there would be some extra cleaning to do before her arrival. "She's welcome." Eric was relieved. "I'll let her know. Oh, and I was thinking we could invite my brother and Catherine too. It'll be nice to catch up." Despite my reservations about my mother-in-law's presence, the prospect of seeing Catherine more often was a silver lining. The weekend gathering was bittersweet, filled with reminiscing and the weight of our shared grief. My mother-in-law, as always, carried herself with effortless elegance, though she seemed noticeably thinner. Even in mourning, she remained sharp, offering business advice to Eric and his brother between sips of tea. It was then that I first noticed a shift in her demeanor. Her interactions with me grew more critical, her comments sharper, her patience thinner. "Julie, we're running out of drinks, could you go buy some?" she instructed me. But before I could respond, Catherine stepped in. "I'll go," she offered. My mother-in-law's tone softened immediately. "Oh, could you? That would be helpful." It was then that I realized, she reserved her criticisms for me, while Catherine remained untouchable. What followed were weeks of escalating tensions, frequent unannounced visits, criticisms of my housekeeping, passive-aggressive remarks about my cooking, and an alarming habit of rummaging through our fridge without permission. Each encounter left me drained, her words needling into my peace of mind. But nothing compared to the moment I realized my mother's necklace was missing, a keepsake so dear to me, suddenly gone. The moment I saw it hanging around my mother-in-law's neck, something within me shifted. I could no longer ignore the blatant disregard, the sheer entitlement. And so, standing in my own home, in front of a woman who had tested every boundary I had left, I finally said the words I had long been afraid to say. "Please return that necklace, it belongs to me." For the first time, I stood my ground, and for the first time, I saw something in my mother-in-law's eyes that I had never seen before: uncertainty. "I couldn't get in touch," I replied, the stress evident in my voice. Noticing my distress, Catherine quickly tuned into the tension. "What's going on?" she asked, her eyes darting between me and the necklace. I was upset and blurted out, "The necklace she's wearing is the same one that belonged to my mother, which recently went missing, the one I kept in that special box," I explained, barely holding back tears. Catherine, realizing the gravity of the situation, spoke up loudly enough for everyone to hear, reinforcing the significance of the necklace and its sudden, mysterious appearance around my mother-in-law's neck. In a hushed voice, desperate to keep the matter from her friends, my mother-in-law whispered, "Can you two stop this? It's embarrassing. Do you want to accuse me of theft?" Her face flushed with indignation. "Yes, I find it suspicious," Catherine replied with conviction, not backing down. "Do you have any proof that I stole it? It's embarrassing to have such unreasonable daughters-in-law. Please don't make a scene in front of my friends," she countered before turning back to her group with a forced smile. "Well, let's go inside, everyone." As she attempted to usher her friends inside, a crucial detail flashed in my mind. "Kayla, can I have a look at the necklace, please?" I asked, needing to confirm my suspicion. Catherine circled behind her to get a closer look. "Enough of this, what's your mother's name?" she snapped, trying to dismiss us. "It's Amanda." There it was. I spotted the engraving, the initials AR. "Right here," I pointed out. Her friends, upon seeing the engraving, looked horrified and began to distance themselves. "Stop this, I didn't come here for this, let's go, everyone," my mother-in-law urged, her tone frantic. "We're not letting you leave," Catherine declared, her voice firm, blocking her path. Sensing the growing tension, her friends muttered, "We're not involved," and quickly made their way toward the subway. "There's been some mistake," my mother-in-law stammered, attempting to follow her friends, but she was stopped by an unexpected presence. "What are you doing here? Weren't you supposed to be on a business trip?" Eric stood there. His arrival was unexpected. It turned out that his supposed business trip was scheduled for the next day. He had given his mother a false date to see how she would act, a plan devised after Catherine informed him of the missing items from our home. Visiting his childhood home and finding similar items missing, Eric had begun to suspect theft, but without concrete evidence. He knew any accusation could easily be denied. "What are you doing here?" Eric demanded. "I was just leaving," she replied, attempting to escape the situation. "Give it back. That necklace isn't yours. It's a keepsake from my parents. Why do you have it, Ma?" I demanded. "It's not what you think. I found it in my purse. Julie must have set me up," she claimed, trying to shift the blame to me, panic evident in her voice. "Do you think such a lie would work? There's no way Julie would do something like that. First, give the necklace back to Julie. We'll talk after that," Eric insisted. Reluctantly, she removed the necklace, threw it on the ground, and tried to flee. "Hey, wait," we called out, starting to chase her, but stopping shortly after. We didn't need to chase her, the truth had already caught up to her. I was bewildered as around 15 police officers stood before my mother-in-law. The scene was surreal, and I couldn't grasp what was unfolding. Then, one officer explained, "We received a report from a local resident. They said someone was causing a disturbance here and was often seen entering this house when the owners were away. They asked us to come quickly." "What are you talking about? I'm the mother of the son living here," my mother-in-law retorted, clearly annoyed. "Wait, what do you mean she entered when we weren't home?" I questioned, my curiosity piqued. "I never did such a thing," she interjected, trying to clarify that her visits were always during our presence. The police then shared more. "The informant saw her sneaking into your backyard, likely using a spare key to get inside." Indeed, we had a hidden spare key under a plant pot in the backyard. This revelation sent a chill down my spine and suddenly made sense of the missing items. Eric had suspected something and planned to observe her actions today, but this turn of events was beyond his expectations. "Mom, why were you coming into our house when we weren't home?" Eric demanded an answer. "It's all lies. Are you going to believe some unknown person's story over me?" she shot back. "But you did have my precious necklace, didn't you?" I pressed her further. "I told you, I found it in my purse." My mother-in-law maintained her story. One officer intervened. "Let's talk about this at the station." "But I didn't do anything." "Eric, say something," she pleaded. "Mom, stop this. I can't understand why you did this," Eric said, his tone firm. Hearing her son's words, my mother-in-law seemed momentarily defeated and collapsed to the ground. However, just when it appeared she had given up, she burst into a rage. "After your father passed away, I felt so lonely. Seeing her always so cheerful, I couldn't stand it. I wanted her to feel the pain I felt," she confessed, her emotions raw and turbulent. Eric was visibly shaken by her irrational justification. Feeling the need to address the situation directly, I stepped in front of an increasingly upset Eric. "Kayla, I understand where you're coming from. Perhaps I've been too dismissive of our interactions. However, stealing and causing distress is an entirely different matter. Did you want to upset me? Is that what you were aiming for?" "Don't be ridiculous," she snapped back. "Did finding joy in pushing someone to their limits with such twisted actions fill the void of your loneliness?" I asked, trying to understand the depth of her actions. "Shut up, what do you know about me?" she yelled, unwilling to confront the reality of her actions. "If you're feeling low, you should just tell us. We can't read minds." I attempted to calm her with reason. "Don't mock me. Why would I confide in you, you useless daughter-in-law?" she retorted angrily. "Mom, Julie has a point," Eric chimed in, trying to mediate. As the tension escalated, the police, observing the situation deteriorate, intervened and suggested relocating to the station. "Are you actually going to arrest me? I can't believe this," she protested vehemently. Despite her objections, based on multiple eyewitness reports of her unauthorized entry and suspicion of theft due to her possession of my belongings, the police decided to detain her. My mother-in-law was arrested on charges of unlawful entry and theft. Continuing to assert her innocence, she demanded legal representation and refused the meals provided. Following her release, she returned to her childhood home in the countryside, leading a simpler life. Under her father's watchful eye, she began contributing to household chores. Perhaps this change would give her a chance to reflect on her past actions. Meanwhile, Eric and I moved forward, embracing the joy of expecting our first child, ensuring our home remained a safe and loving environment.